Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Jessie, and welcome back to another episode of Rewired to Inspire. This show where we'll dive into self-love, learn tangible ways to rewire the brain, and discovering your soul's purpose. The goal of Rewired to Inspire is to encourage listeners to begin doing the hard work, to get curious and open to maximizing your life. Our mindset shapes how we live. Depending on life events, traumas, and personal experiences, our mindsets are all vastly different. However, one thing we all have in common is the ability to rewire our mind, to change the narrative, and to pivot our lives. I hope you leave each episode with the belief that you are so worthy to live a life true to you. I look forward to chatting with you every single Tuesday and Thursday and helping you grow exponentially in all areas of your life. Without further ado, here's today's episode. Hello, you guys, and welcome back to my podcast. I am your host, Jessie Brown, and I am, as always, super thrilled to be jumping on the mic with you all for episode number 60 of Rewire to Inspire. And if you remember my last episode that came out on Tuesday, I chatted about some signs that you might not be living in alignment. And for today, I wanted to branch off of that episode and dive into ways to encourage you to live more in alignment, because I truly hope that that episode resonated with you guys and that you were able to maybe pick up some signs in your life of maybe just little tweaks or ways that you can begin to live optimally, begin to live more in flow, begin to live more in alignment. But you might have been sitting there after wondering, well, how do I do that? What does living in alignment really mean? And although I kind of covered some signs that you might not be living in alignment, you might still be wondering for yourself what that could potentially look like. So my goal and my intention for today's episode, number 60, which is crazy, is to give you guys hopefully some starting points to start to live more in alignment. And the unique thing about today's episode is that this is going to look differently for every single person, because no two people live in alignment the same way, but more so that living in alignment basically is your own state of being. When you are in flow, you are living in alignment. When you are doing things that you know that you could do no matter what and it would bring you joy, that is living in alignment. When you feel like you're just a 10 out of 10 and just in your body and just feel safe and feel seen and heard and validated, that means you're living in alignment. If you have good memories associated with it, it's often likely because you are living in alignment. And I do just want to preface before I dive in today that living in alignment can change. As we grow and evolve, what those particular things are might change over time, and that is okay. And that is why I'm so passionate about this episode, is because it's about checking in if maybe at one point these things were in alignment, but maybe now since you've grown, you've evolved, you've elevated, whatever it is, maybe those things aren't in alignment anymore. So without further ado, let's dive into ways that we can begin to live more in alignment. And so the first thing that I wanted to share with you guys was a framework that I learned a year ago. And it is honestly a tool and a framework that has absolutely changed my life. And like a lot of the frameworks I share on my podcast, I did not come up with this one. This is one that I learned through group coaching from Next Level University. And it is something called a life map. And so I'm going to do my best to explain it to you guys. For those of you who are listening in audio, for those of you who are watching in video, I'm going to put just some pictures on here, some pictures below to just help you guys kind of see what I'm talking about. But to explain it as best as possible, I want you to just imagine a circle. Imagine a circle and imagine your name is written in the middle of it. So you have your circle and your name is written in the middle. Then I want you to give 12 branches off of that circle. So 12 lines that are going away from the circle, almost like how we used to draw a sun when we were kids, except for don't put like the little line between the big lines. Did anybody else used to do that when they were drawing a sun? Maybe just me. Anyways, I want you to draw that circle, draw those 12 lines out from it. Then what I want you to do is I want you to identify the 12 things that you spend your most time doing. And I don't want you to sit there and contemplate like, is this actually good for me? Is this actually in alignment? I want you to just start with where you are right now. So writing all those things down. Is it your work? Is it your kids? Is it cooking as a part of your identity? Is it a certain show that you think is a part of your identity? There is literally no wrong answer. And I want you to write 12 of them out around your name. And this might take a while. I know the first time I did this, it took a little while, and that's okay. Take your time with it. Wait till you feel like you have the time to like really sit down and get honest with yourself and tune out the world and write those 12 things down. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to go through them one by one and ask yourself, what am I putting into this thing on a scale of 0 to 10? So if, let's say, for example, it's your kids are on your list and you feel like you're putting in like a 7, you're putting in a 7, write that down. And I want you to do that for all of them around the circle. Rate it 0 to 10, what it is you feel you're putting into that item. Next, I want you to go back through the circle and I want you to write out what you're getting out of that. So for your family, let's say you get a 10 out of your family. You're putting in a 7, you're getting out a 10. Now, once you've done that all the way around, I want you to go through and find the difference. So the difference between 7 and 10 would be 3. So you would be operating technically, that would be a +3 as a feeder because whatever your out is would be the positive because that's like your soul feeling recognition that it's good for you. It brings you joy. It brings you up. It brings you happiness, whatever it is. And so the goal of this framework is to see how many things in your life are bleeding you and how many things in your life are feeding you. I knew the first time I did this and I wrote social media down, I was investing like an 8 and I was getting out maybe a 1 or a 2. And so I knew something had to change because my frequency of matching that was just so vastly different. And so no wonder I was feeling a certain type of way every time I jumped on social media. And so once you go through your list and you gather that, that is when you can then begin to bring awareness to it and say, okay, what are the biggest bleeders here? How can I begin to take those out one at a time? Find a way to make it more optimal. Maybe it's something you can't take off your list, but then maybe asking, can I spend less time doing this thing and spending more time doing something that's giving me a level 8, 9, or 10 in return? And that is really what living in alignment is. It's how is it making you feel in return? Because we all have things in life that we don't want to do, but that we just have to do. And that's just life. But what are the times and the places that you're investing pieces of yourself that are giving you nothing in return? Because over time, that is going to deplete you. That is going to burn you out. That is going to lower your sense of self, lower your sense of purpose, lower your sense of living in alignment because your body just feels like it's doing everything against what it wants to do. And so that is a great exercise that you can do. So that's called the Next Level Life Map. Again, such a powerful framework that literally takes 10 minutes to do, gives you an insane amount of clarity and awareness that you can then begin to look at your life and have those aha moments of like, oh, I never really realized that thing was bleeding me so much, or oh, I need to do that way more often. That gives me so much fulfillment. And again, I want you to ask yourself when you're doing this, are those things that are bringing you fulfillment simply comfort things, or are they things that you actually feel are in alignment that are good for you? Because that's the thing, is if we just put on there eating junk food and that gives us a 10 in return, that's great. But if we do that every day, that's also going to be depleting. So it's all about finding that balance, finding that harmony, but also just bringing awareness to the things that make you at the core, but you've maybe stemmed away from because we all just have such busy lives and busy schedules. The second thing that I want you to do, which honestly, all of the next points that I have for you kind of all tie into that one, but I want you to begin to notice how you feel around certain places, things, and ideas. Asking yourself, am I a follower? Am I a chaser? Am I a people pleaser? Am I most comfortable when I'm around certain people? Do I feel like I'm always taking the back seat around certain people? When I get home from spending time with certain friends, do I feel icky? Do I feel like they don't see me? They don't hear me? They don't encourage me? They don't lift me up? Asking yourself those questions each and every day, especially the places that you are going to often. That is how we can begin to make shifts in our life. But if we don't even acknowledge for ourselves that we're feeling a certain type of way, it's likely that we'll never take change or force change to happen to make a pivot because we're not even recognizing that that's happening to us in the first place. And so every day for a while, I encourage you to just check in with yourself. How am I feeling right now? How am I feeling around this person? How am I feeling at this place? Maybe that place is your job and every time you're there, you just feel like you want to run in a hole. If that's you, I definitely encourage you to bring awareness to that because that's likely because you're not living in alignment and our jobs aren't supposed to make us feel that way, although society causes us to believe that we are just supposed to be okay with getting a paycheck. But my mission on this podcast, as always, is to just Elevate our societal norm. I talk about society, quote unquote, so often on my podcast, and that's just because from a younger perspective, I truly believe the weight of our society is on our shoulders, and we hold so much pressure to be this or the other thing when we could never be that. I always say, what if we're triangles trying to fit into a square? It's not going to work, nor should it, because we are unique triangles, not squares. And so asking yourself again, how do I feel when I do certain things around that person? Bringing awareness to it is a great way to begin to live more in alignment, because if you're feeling any type of off way around those things, it's likely because something in your soul is like, nope, this ain't working for us. We've been here before. We recognize this feeling. Get out of there. That is your higher self. That is your intuition communicating with you. I remember this one time, clear as day, when I was living in Alberta and two girlfriends asked me to go out for lunch or dinner, whatever it was. And I just remember complaining to my partner at the time about it, saying I didn't want to go, knowing I didn't want to go, but I was never able to actually speak through communication of telling them I didn't want to go. And so I ended up going anyways, and I ended up feeling super, super crummy about it. I was really resentful. I was super cranky to be there. And that's because instead of just listening to my gut instinct of telling me not to go, I forced myself to go, and I ended up hurting my own self-worth and my own self-esteem, wasting my time, wasting their time. And so that's the thing, it's like, if something for us isn't working and isn't in alignment, it's also not fair for the other person if we are pretending that it is, because maybe that thing or that meeting or that lunch or that workplace or whatever is in alignment for somebody else. And so if we're just pretending that we are also on that train with them, that can really become detrimental to friendships, that can become detrimental to just workplaces as a whole. But it is about getting honest with yourself first and then being able to communicate that appropriately, which I understand is hard because I struggle with confrontation big time, and I'm going to be doing an episode soon about confrontation and just ways to slowly improve having those hard conversations, because I know it's a really, really hard thing to do. But I also know that living a life of unfulfillment, unaligned, unhappiness is also not worth it in the grand scheme of things, because we are so worthy of higher and the best version of ourselves, or else we wouldn't be feeling those things in the first place. Number 3, my third way to live more in alignment is to do the things that you don't want to do, but know that you'll feel better when you do them. I want you to all ask yourself right now, what is those couple of things that you know you don't really want to do them, but you know that you probably should? What are those things? A huge one, probably jumping right off the page, is fitness. That is a huge one in our world where we say we're going to go and we don't go. So much so that it's become just like a joke of like, oh, another day that I didn't go to the gym. Like, imagine if I would have went. But think of those things that we know we don't want to do them, but we know that we should, or that we feel good after we do it. Even sometimes with podcasting, I talk about this all the time. There's days that I just genuinely don't want to jump on the microphone, but I know that as soon as I do and I start to get in flow, I feel so much better. And that's because I'm living in alignment. And sometimes it's about just jumping in and just starting, just doing the thing. I talk about the 2-minute rule quite often on my podcast that James Clear has described in his book, Atomic Habits, which basically just means start with the first 2 minutes of doing something. Anything you don't want to do, whether it's going to the gym, jumping on the microphone, starting that book you said you were going to start, starting that business you said you were going to start, applying to that job, reaching out to that person, whatever it is in your life, because we all have those things that we know in the back of our mind. How can you just do something in 2 minutes that's gonna kickstart that train? Because again, we often think that momentum comes before action, but momentum is a byproduct of action and putting in the work. Because if I didn't start the first 2 minutes of jumping on here, I wouldn't have gained any momentum, because I would likely still be cleaning something around my house or getting something done. But I decided to just set my microphone up, sit down, put my headphones on, and just get started. And now here we are. And I'm so grateful for that, because now I'm living in alignment. I feel in flow. I feel grateful. And I know I'm going to feel better afterwards. Because as I've shared before on my podcast, whenever we're able to hold ourselves accountable and actually do something we say that we're going to do and follow through with it, that increases our self-worth because we're telling our brain, when I say something, I'm actually going to do it. But if we say we're going to do something and we don't do it over and over and over again, our brain just starts to associate that with, okay, like that's not a big deal. We've done this before and we technically weren't hurt, or we didn't have to feel any sense of anxiety. We weren't threatened. So it's okay. Like we can just keep doing this thing where we just tell ourselves we're going to do something and we don't do it. And as I've said before, like imagine you have a friend that always promises they're going to do something and then they never do it. And it's so irritating. Like we just want to grab that friend and shake them and say, just do the thing, just do it. Do that with yourself. Be that friend to yourself to hold yourself accountable. Remember how good you'll feel after. And again, this episode is about living more in alignment. When we do the things that we know we feel better after we do them, it's often because it's in alignment with us in some way, shape, or form. It might just be in alignment because our body knows it's what's best for us. It might be in alignment because our mind knows it's good for us. Our family knows it's good for us. Whatever it is, but it has to start with you. You have to be willing to commit to something and actually follow through with it, and follow through consistently. And that is how you will begin to live more in alignment. So identify those things for yourself. Number 4, start saying no to more things that you know you don't want to do. So this is kind of like the scenario that I just shared with you guys about going out to lunch with my 2 old friends. I knew that I should have said no. I knew that I didn't want to go. I knew it wasn't in alignment. I knew I had other things I wanted to do. And I became resentful. I became angry at myself. And so therefore going, I wasn't doing the things I said I was going to do. I then was taking it out at the world because of my own actions. And so where in your life do you need to start saying no? This is like the hardest thing I find specifically for women, is to say no. Saying no, especially to things that aren't in alignment, is one of the greatest ways to raise our self-worth, but also to maintain and hold boundaries. Think of all the times that you've just said yes just to please somebody, to keep somebody happy, to feel a certain type of way, to get affirmation, to get validated, to get appraised, to whatever. We say yes because we're fearful to say no. And in my opinion, that is simply it. Because if we truly wanted to do something, we wouldn't feel the need to want to say no in the first place. And so living in alignment would mean stating your boundaries, stating clear to those. There's been so many times in the last month where I've had to say no to things that old Jessie would have said yes to, and I would have gone and I would have felt crummy about it. And all we can do is control ourselves. That's the thing. That's the thing with all of these, is to live in alignment. It starts with us. It often starts with boundaries. And this is a huge one. Begin to say no to the things that you know you don't want to do. Because also when we begin to say no and close out those things, we're making room for things that are in alignment. I am someone who believes so deeply in frequency and vibration, in that what we put out, we get in return. And I now know that had I not eventually slowly remove myself from those friendships, slowly remove myself from old relationships, slowly remove myself from jobs that weren't in alignment, I would have never found podcasting. I would have never found my amazing partner now. I would have never moved back to my home province and loving it here. If I wouldn't have done certain things, it wouldn't have landed me here. And the same rings true for you. New things that we want, if they operate at a higher frequency than us, and we are maintaining the same frequency that we were before, we will never manifest or attract those higher things. And this might sound very out there and spiritual, but it's so true. Everything operates at a frequency and at a vibration. And if we are putting out the energy that we are just a yes woman, or we're just going to say yes to everything, and we're just going to please everybody, and we're just going to try to keep the peace, guess whose peace and alignment isn't going to be met? It's yours. And people will begin to recognize that you're like a pushover or a people pleaser, or you just say yes because I've been that person and it sucks. And saying no is super hard. But I encourage you to just literally begin practice saying the word no and framing it in a different way. Still validating, but don't tippy-toe around things. I'm someone who's so guilty at just tiptoeing around to keep the peace, keep people's emotions safe, because that's just been hardwired in me since childhood. But I'm recognizing that on either end of the spectrum, whether you're really good at voicing your boundaries or really not, you can really overindulge in either area. So just begin to notice if you're saying yes to things that you really want to say no to, how you can be respectful about it, because there is a right way instead of just saying, nope, can't do it, sorry. It's like, provide explanations, stand up for yourself, state reasons why you can't. And if that person doesn't respect or maintain that boundary, then that again is a sign that it's not in alignment and it's not right for you. And so stop forcing it to be, because it is not. And my fifth and final way to live more in alignment, and oh my gosh, like there's so many ways that you can begin to live more in alignment. I just wanted to give you guys a quick 5 things that you can begin to incorporate in your life. These are very start of the journey things that you can implement. There is obviously more ways to live more in alignment as you begin deeper on this journey, but without these core fundamentals and checking in where you're at in the beginning, there is no point in diving in deeper. So number 5 is to make a list of all the things that spark joy. And then I want you to ask yourself, how often am I doing them? Write a list of all the things that make you happy. What a fun list to make. Literally anything. It could literally be like playing with Play-Doh and going for a walk with my dog and cooking some soup. Like, it doesn't matter. And those might be the things that I enjoy doing. Just saying. I love a good Play-Doh session. I love playing with crafts and clay and just all those things. Anyways, make a list for yourself of all the things that bring you joy. All the things that make you uniquely you. Because even asking yourself that question, what sparks joy for me? What makes me happy? Those are the things that are in alignment. Those are the things that make you you and make you unique. And through doing those things often, that is also a great way to begin to find your purpose, find your dharma that I talk about all the time on my podcast. A great way to begin to stumble into that and to awaken that within you is to bring awareness to the things that bring you joy. And also just finding gratitude. I was listening to an Oprah Winfrey video earlier, and she basically stated in there that if we only bring 17 seconds a day to bring awareness to our mind, to find gratitude, to say thank you to the universe, and to just find appreciation, 17 seconds a day, we are so much more set up to live a life of fulfillment, of joy, of flow, to find gratitude. It actually expands our mind and allows us to see more gratitude in the things we have joy for. 17 seconds is all it takes. So think of those things often every day. And if you do something and you're like, oh, I really enjoy doing that, write it down. There's something there that poked something within you. Your body communicates with, that's the thing, you guys, is that our body communicates with us all the time energetically. That's why when we feel anxious at certain places, it's because our body's like, whoa, nope, not in alignment. Like I mentioned on Tuesday, that is me at a bar because my body in the vibe and the frequency, and I have an episode coming out soon all about vibe and frequency, but it's that it's not an energetic match for me. And so of course I feel some type of off way. And we all have those things that we feel more in flow with and more not in flow with. And it's not about being any type of way other than to bring awareness to it. But that is my fifth and final way for you to begin to live more in alignment, is to make a list of all the things that spark joy and then ask yourself how often you're doing them. Can I do them more often? Can I make more time for these? Maybe plugging them in on your life map and taking out some other things that aren't bringing you joy, aren't bringing you fulfillment, aren't in alignment, and begin to practice them often, because that, my dear, is how you will begin to live more in alignment and live just the best life. It's so cheesy, but we all have one chance here. We all have one life here, and why spend your whole life not happy, living for somebody else, living for somebody else's boundaries on their time when they want, when you know that that's not the life that you envision and feel for yourself. So I truly, truly hope you take these 5 things, you run with them, you try them, you see how they fit into your life, and just begin to find ways to live more in alignment, because that is exactly what we are here to do, what we are supposed to do, and how we can begin to become the next best, highest version of ourselves. Thank you guys so much, as always, for tuning into today's episode of Rewire to Inspire, number 60. As always, if you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to share it with a friend, share it with a family member, share it with a coworker, share it with someone you think would enjoy. I absolutely love when you guys share my show, when you send me feedback, when you leave a review below. It just honestly ups my vibe so much and lets me know that you guys are enjoying the content, gives me good feedback to be able to tweak my content, because optimally I want to make this podcast is best fitting for you guys and for the listeners as possible, and I can't do that without your guys' feedback and without your help. So thank you guys so much. All the love in the world. I can't wait to chat with you next episode. Bye, you guys. Thank you all so much for tuning into today's episode of Rewire to Inspire. I absolutely love connecting with you all, so make sure you're following me on Instagram. I am at JessieBrown13. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to leave a review or share with someone you think would enjoy. I look forward to chatting with you all next episode. And remember, get out of your head and into your heart.